Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Amelia and Happy New Year. I cannot believe that it is already 2021. I feel like 2020 went by super fast, which is great in all honesty, because that was let's just not talk about 2020 for a while. Like it let us down. It let us down. So here's to hoping 2021 is better. So anyway, I thought because it is January 1st and because it's a Friday, which means I'm uploading a video today, I thought what better way to take hold, to enjoy this opportunity than to make a video about habits. I've already made a few videos about habits before, about habit trackers. I made some new habit trackers for January in my last video where I worked on my January bullet journal, and I've also talked about creating actionable goals, being productive, so I will link my productivity playlist below, and it kind of has a bunch of different videos in that similar scope of habit tracking and performing habits that get you where you want to go, that lead to success. So if you want to check those out, be sure to do so below. Alright, so without further ado, I just want to go ahead and get into this video because it's going to be a lengthy one, so let's cut this intro now and move on. So the first thing that you need to do when it comes to your New Year's resolution is first have one. You need to have a New Year's resolution, but you want to make it a habit, and to make it a habit, you need to define exactly what your resolution is and what you want. For example, let's say your New Year's resolution is the I want to exercise more statement. Now, having a statement that says I want to exercise more doesn't really get you anywhere until you start implementing it as a habit. So the habit for that would be to exercise daily, or exercise every other day, or 3 times a week or something. I do think that having the amount of times that you do something is very important when it comes to making something a habit. And of course, you don't want it to be something so vague. So like, I want to learn more languages this year. Well, you should probably focus on a specific language at first and say, I want to work on learning Japanese every day for however long. The great thing about transitioning your I want to blank or I want to change blank statements for your resolution into habits is that they become more applicable to your lifestyle. So for me, my resolution is I want to write more on a book that I plan to publish, but that isn't a very actionable statement and I can't completely measure that, so I changed it to I want to write 2,000 words a day, every single day for the rest of the year. And most of that writing will be creative writing and it will go towards my book. So it's become an actionable habit goal that I can track and maintain. Now, I also think it's important that you only pick 1 to 3 habits or resolutions to focus on. If you pick more than 3, and heck, even 3 is kind of a lot, if you pick more than that, you're going to be way in over your head, and you're probably not going to see the progress that you desire. Your resolution will fall off in February. It's a blatant guarantee at that point. So definitely choose 1 to 3 habits to focus on. This year I'm only choosing 1. Even though I have so many habits that I really want to implement, I'm just focusing on writing for the sake of my own sanity. So something, and this is probably going to take up the bulk of the video, something I really wanted to talk about was this book called Atomic Habits. I'm currently reading it. I'm only about maybe 30%, 40% of the way through. I'm not even at the halfway point yet, but it's a book that I found is really helpful, and I don't know why I didn't read it sooner, but given that we are talking about habits and that we're making New Year's resolutions, I thought Atomic Habits would be a good book to talk about in regards to this process. So like I said, I'm not very far in with this book yet, so I don't know all of the secrets, and I've only jotted down a few things that I think are really important in regards to this video, but there is so much great content in that book. I'm amazed, to be honest. I'm amazed. I really didn't expect that from a self-help book before. So, I wrote down a few of the, I have notes. I wrote down a few of the core things that I thought would be interesting that would help to keep your habits over the course of the next year, or at least month by month. So there's 4 steps in the cycle for habits. He calls it the habit loop, and they are cue, craving, response, and reward. And essentially all habits that are either bad habits or good habits start with a cue. One of the examples I think in the book was the cue is that you are tired, so the craving is that you want coffee in order to not be tired because you want to be awake, so you crave to be awake. The response is to make a cup of coffee and drink it, and the reward is that you end up being more awake. And so you associate coffee with being awake or waking you up in the morning, and it becomes a habit. But I thought it was really interesting, and going along with these cue, craving, response, reward loop, going along with that is this idea of how to form new habits using that loop. And what he says in the book is that you need to make it obvious. You need to make your habit obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. And that goes along with the cue, craving, response, reward thing. So when it comes to forming your new habits, you do need to have a cue that is obvious, a craving that is attractive, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to dive into the theories as much in regards to those because that's the bulk of his book, and I think that you should read it rather than relying on my input for it. But when it comes to habits, just the action of recognizing the cues that you need in order to perform a habit, the craving that you're desiring, which, for example, with exercise, you crave to be physically fit, exercise will get you there. So that should be the response, and then the reward is that you will be physically fit. So that's kind of the idea behind those the four-part cycle that he mentions. And so the goal for any habit that you form or any resolution that you form is to recognize the cue, craving, response, and reward. So that's kind of the idea there. I will put a link to the book on Amazon below so you can find it, but you can also find certain aspects of the story for free on other programs and platforms. So there are a few key statements that the author puts in Atomic Habits that I think are really important when it comes to forming habits for the rest of the year, especially ones that are your New Year's resolution that you want to move forward with and implement into your lifestyle to the point that it is a habit and you don't even have to think about it anymore. So one of his statements is, when situation X happens, then I will perform response Y. So for me, since I want to write a book, I would say when I'm finished with dinner, I will write 2,000 words of my story. And I can do that at any point. The idea is trying to find a point that works best for me. At the moment, I'm not entirely sure what that is, but I am going to try a few different situations and see how it implements into my lifestyle. So January is kind of a trial period for me, or at least the first few weeks of it are, until I eventually get this habit where I need it to be. So if you are trying to be physically fit or exercise every day, you could say, after I have a light breakfast, I will go for a run, or before I have breakfast, I will exercise, or something similar, and you can change that depending on your needs, of course. Another thing, and this goes right along with something I mentioned earlier in this video, and that is that you need your habit, your goals to be definitive. You need them to have some kind of measurable results, some kind of number associated to the habit to make sure that you actually do it. I don't know why, but numbers, or at least measuring out the allotment of time, location, all that stuff, is super helpful when making a habit, especially when you're trying to make the habit fit. So his statement is, I will behavior at time in location. So for me, for writing, I could say I will write at 8 p.m. in the office. And it makes your habit more likely that it will happen because of the definitive answer and because it is measurable. Going along with this, you can say that I will do this for this amount of time in this location. Like I will meditate for 10 minutes in the living room, and so on and so forth. You kind of want your habit to be something that you can measure, something that you can track. It's really hard when it comes to habit tracking, as I mentioned earlier with the habit trackers, it's really hard to track a habit if you aren't also tracking the time. So while you can be like, yeah, I totally read a book, maybe you only read one page and you only read for 5 minutes. Does that count as reading for you? Does that count towards your goal? Will reading one page or reading for 5 minutes a day help you as much as you hoped it will? Will it reach that yearly goal? Say you wanted to read 24 books by the end of the year? Will you be able to achieve that if you only do a little bit? So you kind of need to make a measurable result in order to reach the goals that you have in mind. When you say, I want to become physically fit, what exactly do you mean by that? Is there a designated weight that you want to be? Do you want to have a certain BMI? Do you want to be able to lift a certain amount of weight? Like, what is your real goal? What's a measurable goal that you can set for yourself and then follow up to achieve? Something else I think is really beneficial from this book is the ability to stack habits. So I just read this chapter, in all honesty, and to be fair, I don't have a very great knowledge of what it means entirely, because like I said, I just read it, but I did find it interesting that stacking habits might be a better alternative to using your new habits than just trying something totally different, totally new that you have never done before. Stacking habits makes things a bit simpler and easier to follow up. It goes right along with, after I do blank, I will do blank. So it kind of goes along with that sentence as well. And doing that by stacking your habits might prove to be more successful, especially with definitive results and definitive goals that you can track, monitor, reflect on, and adjust as need be throughout the year. Alright, so that is all that I have for today's video. I'm hoping that you use some of those sentences below and statements. I will link a small, I won't say link, I will include a small section where I write down these sentences so that way you can try to implement it into your own routine. Again, be sure to make your results or to make your goals definitive and measurable, because that is what's going to really help you in the long run. And of course, I hope that you stick with your habits. We will be doing a check-in. We're going to be doing a check-in, alright, on your habits, and we're going to see where you are, and I'll let you know how it works for me as well. So, without further ado. Why do I always say without further ado? So until next time, yeah, I'm so bad at doing these outros. I'm so bad.